My sweet child. Wait for a moment, do not rush past these words. There is something moving behind the scenes of your life right now, and if you leave too early, you may miss the very message that was meant to find you at this exact moment. A quiet shift has already begun. You cannot see it yet. You cannot touch it yet. You cannot fully understand it yet. But something has changed. And the reason this message found you today is because the change that has taken place is connected to someone whose heart has been carrying your name much longer than you realize. Listen carefully. Because what I am about to reveal is not about a random moment. It is not about a temporary feeling. It is not about a passing thought. It is about a decision. A secret decision. One that was not made lightly. One that took time. One that was fought against. One that was delayed again and again. Yet now, everything is different. Stay with me. Something huge is waiting for you. For a long time this person tried to convince themselves that they could ignore what they felt. They distracted themselves. They stayed busy. They focused on other responsibilities. They told themselves that time would erase the connection. They believed distance would weaken it. They thought silence would solve it. But every attempt led them back to the same place. Back to the same thoughts. Back to the same memories. Back to you. Have you ever noticed how some connections refuse to disappear? No matter how much time passes. No matter how many distractions appear. No matter how many reasons someone creates. The feeling remains. That is exactly what has been happening. And recently, something unexpected occurred. A moment that seemed ordinary on the surface. A conversation. A memory. A reminder. A realization. Something small. Yet powerful enough to change everything. This person suddenly understood something they had been avoiding for a very long time. They realized that pretending no longer worked. They realized that ignoring their heart was becoming harder than listening to it. And when that realization arrived, a secret decision followed. Don't skip. Because this is where the story begins to change. You see, many people think big decisions happen dramatically. They imagine loud announcements. Grand gestures. Huge moments. But the most important decisions are often made in silence. Behind closed doors. Late at night. In moments when nobody else is watching. That is exactly where this decision happened. Nobody celebrated it. Nobody witnessed it. Nobody knew. Yet in that private moment, something shifted forever. This person stopped asking themselves whether they cared. And started asking themselves what they were going to do about it. That question changed everything. Because once someone begins asking that question, the future starts moving. The heart starts choosing. The path starts opening. And whether they realized it or not, they stepped onto a road leading closer to you. Pause here for a second. Can you feel the energy of that? Not because something dramatic happened overnight. But because a decision always comes before an action. A seed comes before a harvest. A choice comes before a result. And right now, you are hearing about the choice. The action has not fully arrived yet. But the choice has already been made. Something huge is waiting for you. Stay until the end. Because the deeper truth is still ahead. There were moments when this person doubted themselves. Moments when fear whispered in their ear. What if it doesn't work? What if it changes everything? What if I am misunderstood? What if I wait too long? What if I lose this opportunity forever? These questions became impossible to ignore. And strangely, The fear of losing you became greater than the fear of moving forward. Read that again in your heart. The fear of losing you became greater than the fear of moving forward. That realization was powerful. Because people do not make life-changing decisions until something becomes more important than their fear. And for this person, something finally did. You. Not a fantasy. Not an illusion. Not an idea. You. The real you. The person they think about during unexpected moments. The person whose presence continues appearing in their thoughts. The person connected to emotions they can no longer explain away. This is why the decision happened. Not because someone forced it. Not because circumstances demanded it. But because the heart became too loud to ignore. Don't skip. The next part matters. There is another detail you need to understand. This decision was not impulsive. It was built slowly. Piece by piece. Day by day. Thought by thought. Memory by memory. Every time they remembered something about you. Every time they wondered how you were doing. Every time they imagined what could happen if things changed. Every time they questioned why they still cared. Another piece was added. Until eventually, the decision became unavoidable. And when that moment arrived, everything inside them became clearer. Not perfect. Not easy. But clearer. For the first time in a long time, they stopped running from the truth. And that truth led directly toward you. Something huge is waiting for you. I need you to hear this carefully. Many people expect miracles to arrive with noise. But sometimes the biggest miracle is movement. A heart that was standing still begins moving. A person who was uncertain becomes certain. A soul who was silent chooses courage. That is what happened. Movement. Quiet movement. Hidden movement. Yet powerful movement. And while the world continues normally around them, something extraordinary is unfolding within them. The decision may still be invisible to everyone else. But invisible things often create visible results later. The roots grow before the tree appears. The dawn begins before the sun rises. The decision comes before the action. Remember that. Because what you cannot see today may become impossible to ignore tomorrow. And right now, the story is only beginning. There is another revelation coming. Another layer that changes everything. A detail so unexpected that even this person did not fully understand its importance at first. But that revelation belongs to the next part. For now, hold on to this truth. A secret decision has already been made. A quiet shift has already happened. A door inside someone's heart has already opened. And whether they realize it completely or not, the path they have chosen is leading them toward something they can no longer avoid. Toward honesty. Toward clarity. Toward a future that looks very different from the one they imagined before. Stay close. Because what happened after this decision was made is far bigger than the decision itself. And when that next chapter unfolds, nothing will feel the same. There is something you need to understand before we go any further. The decision itself was important. But what happened after the decision was made? That is where everything began to change. Stay with me. Do not leave too early. Because the next few moments reveal something this person never expected to experience. After making that secret decision, they thought they would feel immediate relief. They thought certainty would instantly remove every question. They believed the answer would bring peace. Instead, something surprising happened. The decision opened a door. And behind that door was a flood of emotions they had been holding back for much longer than they realized. Memories started returning. Not because they were trying to remember, but because the heart remembers what the mind tries to forget. A certain smile. A certain conversation. A certain moment. A certain feeling. Little things. Small details. Details that should have disappeared long ago. Yet somehow they remained. And as those memories returned, another realization arrived. The connection they felt was never as small as they pretended. It never was. They simply became skilled at hiding it. Even from themselves. Something huge is waiting for you. Keep listening. Because this is where the story becomes deeper. One evening, while everything around them seemed completely normal, they found themselves thinking about a future they had never allowed themselves to imagine before. Not a fantasy. Not a dream. Not wishful thinking. A real possibility. For the first time, they stopped asking whether something could happen. And started wondering what would happen if it actually did. That question stayed with them. Hours passed. Then days. Yet the question refused to leave. What if? What if the connection was real? What if the feelings mattered? What if the story was not over? What if there was still something left to discover? These thoughts became impossible to ignore. And every time they tried to move on from them, the thoughts returned stronger. Have you ever experienced that? When something keeps finding its way back into your mind no matter how busy you become? That is what was happening. And the more they resisted it, the stronger it became. Don't skip. Because another revelation is coming. At first, this person believed the secret decision would remain hidden forever. They thought nobody would notice. Nobody would suspect anything. Nobody would understand what was happening inside them. Yet something unexpected began occurring. People around them started sensing a change. Not because they announced it. Not because they explained it. But because energy changes before words do. Their friends noticed moments of distraction. Their family noticed moments of silence. Their routine remained the same. But something about them felt different. And they knew it. They could feel it too. Because when the heart changes direction, it affects everything. The way someone thinks. The way someone speaks. The way someone sees the future. The way someone carries themselves. And this person was changing. Slowly. Quietly. But undeniably. Something huge is waiting for you. There was one particular night that stands out. A night they will probably remember for a very long time. Nothing extraordinary happened on the outside. No dramatic event. No shocking message. No sudden announcement. Just silence. And sometimes silence speaks louder than anything else. In that silence, they asked themselves a question they had been avoiding for months. Maybe even years. What am I really afraid of? The answer surprised them. Because the answer was not rejection. The answer was not failure. The answer was not uncertainty. The answer was regret. Regret. The possibility of looking back one day and wondering what could have happened if they had been brave enough to follow their heart. That thought shook them. Because regret is powerful. It reaches into the future and changes decisions in the present. And from that moment onward, something inside them became impossible to stop. Momentum. Real momentum. Not excitement. Not emotion. Momentum. The kind that quietly changes lives. Stay until the end. Because the most important part is still ahead. You see, once momentum begins, people start noticing truths they previously ignored. That is exactly what happened. This person began seeing signs of your importance everywhere. A memory connected to you. A lesson connected to you. A feeling connected to you. The more they paid attention, the more impossible it became to deny. You mattered. More than they admitted. More than they expected. More than they planned. And that realization created another shift. The secret decision grew stronger. It stopped being a possibility. And started becoming a commitment. Not necessarily a commitment they announced. But a commitment they felt. A promise made inside the heart. A promise that said, I cannot keep pretending forever. I cannot keep avoiding this forever. I cannot keep running forever. And when that promise formed, the future changed again. Something huge is waiting for you. Listen carefully. Because another piece of the puzzle is about to appear. There were moments when they almost turned back. Moments when old fears returned. Moments when uncertainty tried to reclaim control. That happens whenever someone stands near an important change. Fear always makes one last attempt. One final argument. One final warning. One final distraction. And for a brief moment, it almost worked. Almost. But not completely. Because every time fear spoke, the truth spoke louder. Every time doubt appeared, the connection remained. Every time uncertainty returned, the decision survived. That is how they knew something was different. Because temporary emotions disappear under pressure. Real feelings do not. And the pressure revealed the truth. The truth remained. You remained. The connection remained. And that changed everything. Don't skip. Something huge is waiting for you. There is another detail that nobody talks about. When someone makes a decision involving the heart, they begin noticing time differently. Hours feel longer. Days feel heavier. Moments feel more meaningful. That happened to them. Certain days felt endless. Not because life was difficult, but because anticipation had entered the picture. The anticipation of what comes next. The anticipation of possibility. The anticipation of change. And anticipation is powerful. Because it means someone is no longer focused on the past. They are focused on what might happen next. That is exactly where this person found themselves. Looking forward. Thinking forward. Imagining forward. For someone who spent so long looking backward. That shift was enormous. And it happened because of the decision. The secret decision. The one nobody knows about. The one that changed everything. There is something else you should know. This person began noticing qualities about you they once overlooked. Not because those qualities suddenly appeared. But because they were finally paying attention. Your strength. Your resilience. Your kindness. Your patience. Your growth. The way you continue moving forward. The way you continue becoming who you are meant to be. All of it became clearer. And clarity changes people. Because once someone sees clearly, they cannot unsee. Once someone understands value, they cannot pretend it does not exist. And once someone recognizes significance, it becomes part of every future decision they make. That is exactly what happened. Stay with me. Because the next revelation matters. One morning they woke up with a feeling they could not explain. Not excitement. Not nervousness. Not fear. Something deeper. A sense that life was moving toward a turning point. A crossroads. A moment they would eventually remember. And although they could not explain why, they trusted the feeling. Sometimes the heart knows something before the mind catches up. That is what was happening. The heart already understood. The mind was still learning. And little by little, the mind began catching up. The excuses disappeared. The confusion faded. The resistance weakened. The truth remained. You remained. The connection remained. And every road seemed to lead back to the same realization. This decision was not a mistake. It was necessary. Something huge is waiting for you. Do not leave now. Because there is one final revelation in this chapter. The most important one yet. After all the thinking. After all the questioning. After all the uncertainty. After all the hesitation. They reached a moment of complete honesty. A rare moment. A powerful moment. A moment when there was nobody else to impress. Nobody else to convince. Nobody else to satisfy. Just themselves. And in that moment they admitted something they had never fully admitted before. Their life felt different because of you. Not complete because of you. Not dependent on you. But different because of you. Your existence had changed something. Your presence had changed something. Your impact had changed something. And once they admitted that truth, the secret decision became permanent. No more pretending. No more denying. No more running. Only forward. Only clarity. Only honesty. Only the path they had finally chosen. And that is where part 2 ends. Because the next chapter begins with something completely unexpected. Someone notices the change. A conversation happens. A question is asked. And the answer that follows reveals far more than this person intended. The secret decision remains hidden. But not for much longer. Because what happens next starts pulling that hidden truth into the light. And once that process begins, nothing can stop it. Not every turning point announces itself. Sometimes it arrives disguised as an ordinary conversation. A simple question. A passing comment. A moment that seems completely insignificant at first. And that is exactly how the next chapter began. Stay with me. Because what happened next caught this person completely off guard. The secret decision was still hidden. Nobody knew. Nobody had been told. Nobody had heard the thoughts that had been growing inside their heart. Everything appeared normal. Everything looked unchanged. Yet beneath the surface, everything was different. And then one day, someone asked a question. A simple question. The kind of question people ask every day. But sometimes the simplest questions reveal the deepest truths. The question itself was not extraordinary. Yet the answer almost was. For a brief moment, this person hesitated. Not because they did not know the answer. But because they suddenly realized how much the answer mattered. That realization sent a wave through them. Because for the first time, they could hear their own truth spoken back to them. The truth they had spent so long avoiding. The truth they had hidden behind logic. The truth they had buried beneath excuses. And the moment they heard it, something changed again. Don't skip. Something huge is waiting for you. You see, there comes a point when feelings stop being theories. They stop being possibilities. They stop being questions. They become realities. And this person was arriving at that point. Slowly. Quietly. But undeniably. The secret decision had already been made. Now the consequences of that decision were beginning to appear. Not dramatic consequences. Not shocking consequences. Something much more powerful. Clarity. The kind of clarity that transforms the way someone sees everything. The kind of clarity that makes old fears look smaller. The kind of clarity that makes the future feel different. For a long time, they believed uncertainty was protecting them. Now they realized uncertainty had been holding them back. That realization was impossible to ignore. And once someone discovers that truth, there is no returning to the old version of themselves. Something huge is waiting for you. Keep listening. Because the next realization changed everything. One evening they found themselves revisiting memories they had not thought about in a very long time. Not because they wanted to. Not because they planned to. The memories simply appeared. One after another. Moments they thought were forgotten. Conversations they thought were ordinary. Details they assumed never mattered. Yet now, looking back, everything felt different. Have you ever looked at an old memory and suddenly understood it in a completely new way? That is what happened. Moments that once seemed small suddenly felt significant. Words that once seemed ordinary suddenly carried meaning. And through those memories, one truth became impossible to deny. You had left a deeper impression than they ever admitted. Far deeper. The realization was both comforting and unsettling. Comforting because it brought clarity. Unsettling because it revealed how much they had underestimated their own feelings. And once they saw that truth, they could not unsee it. Stay until the end. Because the biggest revelation of this chapter is still ahead. There was another change happening inside them. A subtle one. Yet perhaps the most important of all. They stopped imagining reasons why things could fail. And started imagining reasons why things could succeed. That shift may sound small. But it changes everything. Because people move toward what they believe is possible. And for the first time in a very long time, possibility began winning. Fear lost some of its power. Doubt lost some of its influence. Excuses lost some of their strength. And hope quietly stepped forward. Not loud hope. Not unrealistic hope. Just enough hope to keep moving. Just enough hope to take another step. Just enough hope to believe that the future might hold something beautiful. And once hope enters the picture, everything changes. Something huge is waiting for you. Do not leave now. Because there is a reason this message found you today. While all of this was happening, another realization emerged. One they never expected. The more honest they became with themselves, the calmer they felt. Think about that. For so long they believed honesty would create chaos. They believed facing the truth would make everything harder. Instead, honesty brought peace. Not complete peace. Not instant peace. But real peace. The kind that comes when someone stops fighting themselves. The kind that comes when someone finally accepts what they already know deep inside. And that peace became a sign. A sign that they were moving in the right direction. A sign that the decision was aligned with something deeper. A sign that they were no longer lost. The path ahead was still unknown. But at least now they knew which direction they wanted to travel. And sometimes that is enough. Sometimes knowing the direction matters more than knowing every detail of the journey. Don't skip. Because something unexpected happened next. As the days continued, they began noticing opportunities. Little opportunities. Small openings. Moments that seemed insignificant to everyone else. Yet to them, those moments felt important. Because once someone makes a decision, they start recognizing possibilities that were always there. Possibilities they once ignored. Possibilities they once overlooked. Possibilities they once dismissed. Now those possibilities seemed impossible to miss. And every new possibility strengthened the decision. Every new possibility reinforced the truth. Every new possibility reminded them why they had chosen this path in the first place. The momentum was growing. Slowly. Steadily. And most importantly, naturally. Nothing was being forced. Nothing was being rushed. Everything was unfolding in its own time. Something huge is waiting for you. There is one final thing you need to hear before this chapter ends. The secret decision is no longer just a decision. It is becoming intention. And intention is powerful. Because a decision exists inside the mind. But intention begins shaping actions. Intention begins influencing choices. Intention begins changing reality. That is where this person now stands. At the edge of intention. At the beginning of action. At the doorway of a completely new chapter. They may not have all the answers. They may not know every step ahead. But they know one thing with absolute certainty. They cannot return to the version of themselves that existed before this decision. That chapter is over. The hesitation is fading. The truth is growing stronger. And the future is moving closer. Much closer. The next chapter begins with a moment neither of you would expect. A moment that seems ordinary on the surface. Yet becomes the spark for something far bigger than anyone realizes. Because soon, the secret decision will begin creating visible changes. Changes that cannot remain hidden forever. Changes that will force this person to confront what comes next. And when that moment arrives, the story enters an entirely new phase.